The difference between Israelites and the surrounding nations, because that matters. And that distinction is where many modern readers began to essentially misunderstand the text. So in segment 3, the covenant distinction and the nations now essentially at this point where critics turn to these passages in Leviticus, and what do they say? They say things like, well, look, the Bible says that you could take servants from the surrounding nations, right? We've all heard that. And so they'll quote Leviticus 25:44. I did a presentation recently demonstrating how, again, their arguments just, it's almost like these people lack critical thinking skills, or they want to superimpose their ideas onto the text to justify it. Either way, it just doesn't make any sense. So they'll quote Leviticus 25:44, but here again, we have to read the text carefully and understand the context. The Torah makes a distinction between the members of the covenant community, who are the Israelites, and the surrounding nations. So this distinction is not about modern racial categories. It's not about, so-called black, white, North African, African American. It's not that. Racial categories did not exist back then. There were ethnic families. Due to European colonization of this entire planet and a number of other things, we have the classification of human beings. So under that reclassification system, we have names that came from their minds that are not biblical names. Black, white, even Negro. That just means black. And did you know it was in the Bible? Niger is in the Bible, Acts 13. The Israelites were called that. So under their classification, their racial categories, that's not what's in the scriptures. It was about covenant law and national identity. Every ancient society had similar distinctions. I'll give you an example. The Roman Empire, there was a clear legal difference between Roman citizens and non-citizens, okay? And you can even buy Roman citizenship. Citizens had legal protections that privileges that foreigners did not have. They just didn't have it. So that was not considered racism. That was simply a function of how their national law worked. The Israelite law operated in a completely different way, but it was within the context of the Israelite community. Within Israel, fellow Israelites were not to be treated as permanent slaves. They were to be treated as brothers within the covenant community. But foreigners who entered Israelite households as servants did not share the same covenant, nor the same type of inheritance of land. So their legal status was different. And so now critics will often take that passage and immediately conclude, see, the Bible supports slavery. You have Europeans, us, we're going to treat our own people like servants, and everybody else that we acquire through stealing or through someone handing them over to us, see, that's chattel slavery, and we can do with our property as we will. It's not the case. That conclusion, their conclusion, comes from a logical fallacy. That fallacy is called the straw man fallacy. So instead of addressing the actual legal framework of the Torah, critics replace it with their completely different system. The plantation system, the plantation slavery practiced by these European colonial powers, that's what they'll replace it with. And then attack the Israelite system as if it were the same thing.